Have you ever had a package go missing? Well, imagine if someone took it right off your doorstep, but not just any someone, a self-appointed HOA Karen who thinks she has the right to control everything in the neighborhood. That's exactly what happened to me, but it didn't end how she expected. It all started with a package I was eagerly waiting for. Little did I know, my friendly neighborhood Karen had been watching and decided my package needed to be redirected right into her hands. But what she didn't know was that the package wasn't just any order. It contained prescription narcotics, and not just regular ones, but ones that were being closely tracked by the authorities. As if this wasn't dramatic enough, the story takes a twist. What Karen didn't realize was that these specific medications were being monitored for potential misuse, and with a tracking system in place, her every move was being watched. I'll walk you through the moment she opened that package and just how fast everything spiraled out of control. And trust me, it didn't end with her just getting caught. What happened next was something no one saw coming. Stay tuned to find out how it all unraveled. To understand how this all went down, you need to know a bit about Karen. She wasn't your typical neighbor. She was the kind who thought she had the right to enforce every rule, even the ones that didn't exist. I had seen her stop by to give people warnings about small things, like leaving trash cans out too long or hanging a flag the wrong way. Most of us just let her do her thing, trying to avoid conflict, but this time she went too far. The package I was waiting for was something I really needed. It contained a medication I rely on for a health condition, one that had been prescribed after years of careful monitoring. It wasn't just something I could pick up at any pharmacy. It was specialized and tracked due to the nature of the prescription. The tracking system was in place to prevent misuse, and that's where things got complicated. The delivery service provided updates that let the authorities know exactly when and where it was delivered. When I realized it had gone missing, I thought maybe it had been misdelivered or left with a neighbor by mistake. But then a friend of mine who lived down the street sent me a strange message. Apparently, Karen had taken a package that wasn't hers and was acting weird about it. My stomach dropped. I knew exactly what she had in her hands. What happened next? Well, let's just say the authorities were about to get involved in ways Karen never expected. As I tried to piece everything together, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was happening. I wasn't the only one who'd noticed Karen's odd behavior. A few days earlier, one of the other neighbors had mentioned seeing her walk out of her house with a package that didn't look like hers, though they hadn't thought much of it at the time. But now I couldn't help but connect the dots. It seemed like Karen had been keeping an eye on my deliveries, and for some reason, this one was different. I felt a mix of anger and confusion, but I also knew I had to act fast. I called the delivery service to confirm that the package had been marked as delivered, and then reached out to the pharmacy, hoping they could track the shipment further. That's when things took an unexpected turn. The pharmacy confirmed that not only had the delivery been received by someone at my address, but the authorities had already been alerted. The tracking system had flagged the package because of its contents, which meant they knew someone had received it, and now they were looking into it. The plot thickened when I learned from another neighbor that Karen had been acting strangely around the time of the delivery. She had even approached a few people asking if they'd seen a suspicious package near her driveway. But no one had seen anything out of the ordinary. I couldn't understand what was going through her mind. Was she trying to get involved with something she didn't understand, or was there something more to it? I decided to take matters into my own hands. I had to confront her, but I wasn't prepared for the strange reaction I'd get. Karen's face went pale the moment I knocked on her door. She quickly insisted that she'd found my package and was just holding onto it until I got home. But I could see the tension in her eyes. It didn't feel right. She wasn't just a well-meaning neighbor anymore. Something was off, and it felt like it was getting worse by the minute. As I stood there at her front door, I could feel my heart pounding. The way Karen was acting only made things worse. She kept fidgeting, looking around nervously like she didn't want anyone to overhear our conversation. Her voice was shaky, and for a moment, I thought she was going to shut the door in my face. But I pushed on, trying to stay calm despite the adrenaline rushing through me. "I know you have my package," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "I need it back." Karen's eyes darted to the side, and she took a step back, clutching the door handle tightly. "It's just, I found it on my porch," she said quickly. "I didn't want it to get stolen. I was just keeping it safe for you." I could tell she was lying, but I wasn't sure why. There was something in her eyes, something more than just the guilt of a nosy neighbor. It was as if she knew the stakes were higher than I could even comprehend. I didn't have time to question it further. I needed to get that package back, and fast. Before I could say anything else, the sound of a car pulling up outside caught my attention. I glanced out the window and saw a squad car pulling into the driveway. My stomach dropped. The authorities were here, and they weren't just looking for the package anymore. They were coming for Karen. She must have seen the look on my face because her eyes widened. "No, you don't understand," she stammered, her hand shaking as she gripped the door tighter. "I wasn't going to. I didn't mean to do anything wrong." But it was too late. The officers were already walking up the path. Karen's face drained of color, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. It was clear she was about to be caught up in something much bigger than her petty HOA surveillance. But what had she really been planning with my package, and how deep did this go? The tension in the air was thick. I could feel my pulse racing as I waited to see what would happen next. Would Karen try to run? Would she explain everything, or was there a much darker side to this that no one was prepared for? Just as the officers reached Karen's front step, everything took a turn I hadn't anticipated. Karen suddenly bolted, running toward the back of her house with surprising speed. The officers didn't hesitate. They took off after her. But it was clear this wasn't just a simple case of package theft anymore. There was something more going on. I stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. I had expected Karen to be apprehended, not to flee like a criminal on the run. What was she hiding? And why was she so desperate to avoid the police? The officers were shouting for her to stop, but her sprint only grew faster, and I could hear her frantic footsteps echoing in the distance. Before I could move, another officer approached me, his face tense. "Stay here," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We need to make sure we have all the details. This isn't just about the package anymore." I nodded, trying to process what was happening. But then, just as quickly as the situation had escalated, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from an unknown number. I opened it, heart racing as I read the message. "She isn't the only one involved. Don't trust anyone in the neighborhood. Your package wasn't meant for you." Asterisk. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt the blood drain from my face. My first instinct was to tell the officer, but something held me back. What did this mean? Had Karen been part of something bigger? And why was my package being used as some kind of pawn in whatever game was going on? The air felt thick with tension. I couldn't shake the feeling that the entire neighborhood was now wrapped up in a mystery far darker than I had ever imagined. What had Karen gotten herself into? What was my role in all of this? The stakes were higher than ever, and I had no idea how deep this rabbit hole went. The officers finally caught up with Karen in her backyard, just as I was trying to make sense of the cryptic message. They had her pinned down, though she wasn't fighting anymore. Her face was pale, and her hands were shaking as she looked up at the officers, visibly defeated. The tension was unbearable as the officer in charge approached her, speaking in a low but firm tone. "You're under arrest for theft and obstruction of justice," he said. "We have more than enough to hold you." Karen's eyes flickered toward me, and for a brief moment she looked almost desperate. "You don't know what you're getting into," she whispered, barely audible. "You think I'm the one who's been messing things up, but it's bigger than that. You're in danger too." I stood there frozen, not knowing how to respond. Just as I opened my mouth to ask her what she meant, the officer gave me a stern look, signaling for me to step back. Karen was cuffed and led toward the police car, her eyes now glazed over with a mix of fear and regret. That's when it hit me. my phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from the same unknown number. Asterisk, you should have listened. They're watching. Asterisk. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. The officers had Karen, but there was something much larger at play here. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was just a small piece of a much bigger puzzle. The package, the surveillance, the hidden warnings, none of it made sense until now. As the squad car pulled away, I turned back toward my house. That's when I noticed something out of place. Across the street, at the edge of a driveway, I saw a car with tinted windows slowly pulling away. It had been parked there for hours, unnoticed by anyone. My stomach dropped as the pieces finally clicked together. Someone had been watching me this whole time. And just as the realization sank in, I saw a figure in the distance, a shadow, lingering by the trees near my front yard. Was it a neighbor? Or was it someone from the larger web I was now tangled in? My heart raced as I realized, while the package had been returned, the true danger was just beginning. The mystery wasn't over, and it felt like I had just uncovered the tip of an iceberg. The question was, who was really behind it all, and why had they targeted me in the first place? The story was far from over. As I stood there staring at the shadowy figure, I knew I couldn't stay in the dark much longer. I rushed inside, locking the door behind me, and quickly pulled up the recent texts. My mind was racing, piecing everything together. Karen wasn't the mastermind, just a pawn. She had been manipulated into taking my package, unaware of its real significance. And whoever was watching me wasn't just watching, it was orchestrating everything from behind the scenes. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. The authorities had everything they needed to connect Karen to the theft, but there was a bigger story to unravel. The package, it turned out, had been part of a larger operation involving the distribution of prescription narcotics, and someone was trying to cover their tracks by using unsuspecting neighbors like me. The next morning, I received a call from the police. They'd tracked down the car I'd seen leaving my street, and it led them to a network of individuals involved in a much larger crime. Karen had unknowingly been a middleman, and it was clear she wasn't the only one targeted by these people. In the end, I learned that sometimes the smallest things, like a missing package, can be a key that unlocks a much darker truth. I was left with one final thought. The world is full of hidden layers, and not everything is what it seems on the surface.